against him. I'm not surprised that he had no back down in his game, because he is a player that plays with confidence and swag. And it was really cool to see him get the job done, and the emotion at the 18th green with the interview with Amanda, especially for like a really kind of like, Jersey boy.
Tough
Good to see a little emotion
with the gold necklace. You're like, oh, what's going on here? Yeah,
sure.
that was super cool.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
And Twitter started blowing up that I think it was someone from TSN that was in the arena that was posting this stuff. And I'm sure, like, when they, it's a beer league, so after the first period, when they're all sitting there in the room, I'm sure somebody said, hey, Connor, you're getting lit up on Twitter. We're beating you 4-0, ha, ha, ha. And he's probably thinking, like, I can't even play a beer league game without you guys, like, saying what the score is.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
And I showed you the Heisman odds a week or two ago, and they had Garrett Nussmeier as the second favorite behind Manning. So Brian Kelly's very excited to have Garrett back at school.
He is no athlete, in my opinion. You can quote me on that. Like, he is a clumsy white dude, and he sucked. I'm being nice now. Now all of a sudden you're talking about him being great? Oh, slow down there, Coach.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Shohei Ohtani can do something that nobody else in Major League Baseball can do. That means being maybe one of, if not the top 5 best hitters in baseball, and then go on the mound and throw some gems out here. Like, he's through 9 innings so far in his season, which isn't a lot, but that ERA is at 1. Are we saying that once he gets to 5 and 6 innings, that ERA is going to stay at 1? No, it isn't. But if it does, my goodness, I mean, just hand him the Cy Young on top of it as well. It's cheating.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Dame Lillard returns home, plus the NFL Players Union director resigns. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Front Office Sports Today, presented by Atlassian. From FOS Studios in New York City, I'm Baker Machado.
And I'm Renee Washington. Happy Friday! And thank you guys so much for joining us each and every weekday as we chat the biggest stories happening in the business and culture of sports. We're also heading back to Indy to see how they're preparing for the WNBA All-Star Game. But first, let's jump right into the shoot-around.
Yeah, and let's start in the NBA, Renee, where there's no place like home. 9-time All-Star Damian Lillard, fresh off his release from the Bucks, has agreed to a 3-year, $42 million deal to return to Portland. This is, of course, where his family and his children reside. Now, his deal includes a player option in 2027, and he actually joins LeBron as the only 2 NBA players right now, Renee, with a full no-trade clause in there.
Yes, Damian Lillard back to where he was drafted and was a 7-time All-Star. And when the Bucks waived him with the 2 years remaining on his contract, they are also locked in that they would pay him about $22.5 million each year. So regardless where he went, he knew he had that financial cushion.
Right.
So now, over the next 2 seasons alone, between the Trailblazers and the Bucks, can make about $140 million. But I know Shams Charania have reported that he already was going back to Portland to rehab, to be with his family, his 3 boys, and also had already had talks with GM Joe Cronin and head coach Chauncey Billups around the plans for the future for Portland. So a different tenure, I think, that we're going to see for Dame in Portland this time around. But I also think this is where he's going to retire.
Totally. And also there was reports that a bunch of teams from Boston to others were trying to court him to get the mid-level exception because he was making so much from being released from the Bucks. But clearly at the age of 35, priorities were much different for him, of course, returning to Portland. Meanwhile, as WNBA players descend in Indianapolis for the All-Star Game, the Players Association met with the league in person for the first time since December. That's to continue discussions about a new labor agreement that expires in October. Now, the meeting lasted only a couple hours, and it featured the largest player turnout in union history, with Nafisa Collier, Caitlin Clark, and Angel Reese all in attendance. However, our Annie Kospel is reporting that the mood was less than celebratory. One player was even overheard calling the meeting with the league, quote, BS. Yes, and this was about 40 players in attendance, as you mentioned, a wide range from young stars to veterans. And I know that for the WNBP, executive director, Terry Carmichael Jackson, had a lot of comments afterwards saying, one, they didn't want players to talk coming out of that meeting, but also that they had a very spirited conversation as well, and that although there was not progress, they did have a chance to talk through, as some players even missed paid appearances to be there, more around revenue sharing. So with that October 31st deadline of when this deal needs to be done to avoid a lockout,
Carmichael Jackson did also mention that they're on track, at least, to get back to meeting and continue conversations. That doesn't mean progress, but they're at least on track to continue the conversation.
And our Annie Kosovo was even asking players, what is this transformative deal that you're looking for? Of course, she didn't really get a response to that, but it shows that this is going to be going out potentially to the 11th hour.
The body language said a lot, that they weren't too positive after that meeting, but it's been a long timeline since they first started submitting proposals back in February.
All right, let's move to the NFL, where TJ Watt finally has a new deal with the Steelers that'll get him to training camp. He signed a 3-year, $123 million contract with $108 million of that guaranteed. And the best part, Renee, his $41 million annual salary now makes him the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history.
Yeah, there are 15 players making more than TJ Watt, and they're all quarterbacks. You've got Dak Prescott at the top of that, but also some others, such as Deshaun Watson and Kirk Cousins, that are ahead of him. So with players like Max Crosby, Myles Garrett, Jamar Chase, that have already pushed the needle for non-quarterback contracts, now TJ Watt takes it to another level. But I love that his brother, JJ Watt, who was a 3-time All-Defensive Player of the Year, actually came out and said, listen, I'm not taking the tab ever for dinner now, because we're seeing more money for him in this 3-year extension than the 12 years that JJ Watt had, where he made about $129 million. So it shows the change of where players are getting paid now as positional players.
All right, the big story today, the leader of the Players Association, Lloyd Howell, has resigned from the union, and this after a stream of negative headlines. So let's get into this in our main event. All right, let's bring in Front Office Sports senior news editor Dennis Young for more on this. Dennis, how did we get here, and really what was sort of the straw that broke the camel's back that Howell then had to leave?
Yeah, it's been a flood of revelations from 3 outlets we talked about in the story this morning, from the podcast Pablo Torre Finds Out, from Pro Football Talk, and from ESPN. And it seemed like every day there was a new allegation of corruption or misconduct. To me, the one that seemed the most egregious and newsworthy was that he had a side hustle working for a private equity firm that can buy NFL teams. I mean, it sounds like a crazy way of putting it, but he had a job listed on their website the entire time. He is kind of talking openly about, I know more about private equity than I think the phrase he used was, I know enough to be dangerous, which is a crazy thing. We were talking about the head of a union having a job at a company that could potentially buy NFL teams, a theoretical adversary at the bargaining table. So, I mean, that to me seemed the most egregious, but that was a few weeks ago. And there's just kind of been this stream of revelations about how since, I mean, on Sunday, they had the executive committee put out a big statement that, to me read like something you'd see on Truth Social or something like that. And then last night, the reporting was that he decided to resign on his own. I mean, that he wasn't pushed out because, I mean, it makes sense, right? The executive committee is who hired him, but that he had enough. And I think at the end of the week, and over the weekend, we'll see more about what exactly went into that, what the behind the scenes was, and what the kind of like palace intrigue was of him leaving. I mean, right now it's that he left of his own accord.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm kind of just scratching the surface here. I mean, there's a lot of revelations about this guy.
Definitely a lot there. As you mentioned, though, Dennis, this just comes less than a week after the NFL came out with their statement saying that they didn't find any conflict of interest through their investigation. Yet Lloyd Howell felt like he was a bit of a, quote, distraction to what the NFLPA is doing. How much do you feel like Mike Florio and Pablo Torre's investigation and just continuous pressure honestly pushed him out and made him decide to resign? And they, of course, I want to also mention, said it's not over yet, even though he did resign.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of it just because I think maybe, I think the revelation that started all of it that we haven't even discussed yet was that the union leadership and the league agreed to, I don't know if hide is the right word, but not publish this grievance ruling, this arbitrator's ruling over collusion. And then from there, that is when the kind of the stream of revelation, ESPN reported the Carlisle thing, which again is I don't want to overstate it or over opinionate, but it says a $3.6 million a year union job. Why do you have a consulting gig at a private equity firm? But then also that he was sued for sexual discrimination and retaliation while at Booz Hamilton. And then also that at Booz Hamilton, and then this was out in the open and this was in the news when he was hired, but that Booz Hamilton paid a $375 million fine for overcharging the federal government while he was their chief financial officer. And so that was, public newsworthy information. There's some dispute in the reporting. I know, Renee, this only is kind of somewhat addressing your question here, but that there's some dispute in the reporting how much the players knew about the existence of this sexual discrimination and boys club and retaliation lawsuit. I think the ESPN story had that 2 players said that they didn't know. Other players say they did. So which aren't necessarily contradictory, right?
Dennis, we have less than 60 seconds here with you. Where does the NFLPA go from here now to replace Lloyd Howell?
Yeah, and this is kind of 2 questions on this, and our Eric Fisher and Ben Horney have written about this today. I mean, there's the huge multi-billion-dollar business question of where does the union go, from here in terms of like deciding its priorities, in terms of handling an 18-game season. The CBA is not up for another 5 years, but that could be something they revisit as revenue comes into the league. And then, and Ben is writing about this later today, there's the very narrow and pressing question of, again, the Palace intrigue of who comes next, who is next to be fired, who is next to, it seems like Hal was kind of brought in by J.C. Tretter, this former Browns lineman who has been in union leadership for a few years. So I think that picking an executive director and seeing what becomes of Tretter will be the next on that front.
Well, as Pablo Torre and Mike Florio say, more to come. Yes. So we'll, of course, have Dennis in for that as well. Dennis Young, our senior news editor. Dennis, thank you so much for that update. And coming up next, everyone, we head to Indianapolis. How is that city preparing for the All-Star game without Caitlin Clark? That's next.
There's a possibility that we could be looking at DeBoer wondering if he's the long-term answer at coach for the Tide?
I'm starting to feel like Alabama, I can't believe I'm saying this, Craig, is a sleeper. 4th easiest schedule in the SEC this year. Ryan Williams is back. I think the friendly, these early season games against Florida State and Wisconsin, that is friendly for Alabama.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Paige Beckers, ready folks, is a top 10 WNBA player right now. You ever heard of the band Gladys Knight and the Pips? Yeah, it's Paige Beckers and the Dallas Wings. That's what she's got. Know what that means? She's got nobody. Enrique Wumwale has been awful this year. I don't know if she wants to play there or not.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Her ability to defend, shoot the 3, rebound, pass the ball, and on a team that is awful. Right now, trending to get the #1 overall pick if they win the WNBA lottery. Possibly to draft her buddy AZ Fudd, maybe. But when you look at Paige Beckers is a top 10 player in the WNBA.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Obviously, he didn't do great in the last 2 majors, and we're going home here. We're going to Northern Ireland, Royal Portage. This is Rory's the reason why we're going here. Got off to a rough start, throwing his tee shot out of bounds back in 2019. I think he'll be ready. Not yet ready to call him the winner. I still have a couple of days before I do that, but it is a home game for him. And as you saw, based on this weekend, he is playing well.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
And welcome back, everyone, to Front Office Sports Today with Renee Washington. I'm Baker Machado. And, of course, all eyes on Indianapolis as host of the WNBA All-Star Game. So what goes into making this happen, and what does a town do to get everything off the ground? Well, let's ask Joey Graziano. He's the VP of Strategy and New Business Ventures over at Pacers Sports and Entertainment. Joey, such a pleasure to have you here. Before we talk about the festivities, of course, we got to talk about the big story in the room right now. How does Caitlin Clark's absence change, if anything, for you guys in terms of how you're preparing for this?
Well, I don't think it changes any of our preparation. Obviously, Caitlin's a huge part of our current team and certainly our future plans. But I work for, the Simon family and Herb Simon. And one of the lessons I've learned in my short time here is that Herb has the longest view of anyone I've ever been around. He thinks not years or months into the future, but literally decades. And as part of that, we have this long-term view about how we think about taking care of our players, wanting them to think long-term about their own health, wanting us to think long-term about the fan. And so when we think about sort of a setback, and we're all disappointed she's not able to play in the All-Star game, our focus is on our future together. And I think that alleviates any of the day-to-day pressure or strain when you're thinking about how do you make decisions.
And Joey, I'm curious, in your previous work with the NBA around like the 2020 bubble, around even the Sabrina Ionescu, Steph Curry 3-point shootout, and then the success of the Indiana Pacers hosting the 2024 All-Star, which had the highest attendance in 14 years. How have you been able to pull from those experiences in planning for Indianapolis for the WNBA, which also has high expectations in terms of attendance?
Yeah, it certainly does. I mean, what's so interesting is that about 30% of our fans for a regular Fever game come from outside the state of Indiana. Every game that we have at the Fever is an event. People come from all 50 states. We had people from 47 separate countries already come to games this year. So it truly is a global event every time we play a home game. And we like to think the road games, we have a saying around here, is that every game's a home game. When you think about the Fever and their fandom and the excitement that we have. And so we're certainly pulling some of those lessons, but we decided to take on this responsibility. And I'm sure my colleagues here, maybe they're kicking me as we're all a little bit tired right now, but excited. And we took it on less than a year's notice. So there were 7 years to plan for the NBA All-Star you referenced, and we had to do it in less than a year. And I don't know another city that could have pulled it off. And it's because Indianapolis is such a great major events town. It has all of the infrastructure. The community really rallies. And the way in which we decided was we were not going to just meet the commitments we made on the NBA side. We were going to exceed them for the W. And so if you were here in Indianapolis, you would see branding around the city that you never saw during NBA All-Star. It really feels like a true immersive environment. And that's what our athletes deserve. And what I'm so excited is that the fans of the W, they're new. And some of them have been around for a long time, but many of them are just coming right now. And we want them to have their All-Star in their moment.
Joey, do you guys know the economic impact that this event is going to have on Indianapolis, even just outside of what you guys are able to do with the Simon family from the local businesses that are going to be bringing in money, all these other things?
So we're expecting 70,000 attendees to come in from out of town into Indianapolis, which is certainly a huge number. I did all of the economic impact and earned media value analysis when I was at the NBA for all of these major events. We work with Temple University and their economics professors on that work. And at NBA All-Star, we were more than $400 million in earned media value and economic impact for an NBA All-Star. And we actually right now don't have those comps, but that team of economists are here. And I think one of the ways in which we are elevating this event for future cities and teams is we're going to have those comps for the first time. And so we're excited in the months to come to be able to actually put out raw data about the impact of what this event is right now, and know that we believe these are only going to continue to be floors that get shattered into the future.
Well, we know Indiana is the center of the basketball universe, not just this weekend, but of course with the NBA Finals and of course everything happening with the Fever. Joey Graziano, VP of Strategy and New Business Ventures at Pacer Sports and Entertainment. Best of luck this weekend. We're all rooting for you.
I appreciate it. Thank you all.
Well, ahead of the WNBA All-Star Game is the inaugural Fever Fest in Indianapolis from Kevin Hart's Heartbeat. This is the outdoor music and comedy event is headlined by musician The Kid Leroy. Plus, it's going to have performances from Cedric the Entertainer, Leslie Jones, G-Eazy, and more. Now, this is all happening on Saturday, July the 19th. So let's bring in the global head of marketing and brand strategy over at Heartbeat, Janina Lundy. Janina, thank you so very much for joining us. So tell us a little bit about how this all came together.
Well, first, thanks so much for having me. We're really excited. We're big sports fans and definitely huge women's sports fans. We had been talking with Pacer Sports and Entertainment about how we could have a big moment here for the fans in Indiana. I just got here this morning. And so we're super excited to bring them comedy, music, and a live watch party. You know, there's limited tickets available to actually go to the games. This is an opportunity for people to watch the game with another group of fans.
Well, why was it also important important for Heartbeat to do these sorts of events? Like, what was it? Why did you guys really want to sort of create these things?
Yeah, we work a lot within sports, and there's a lot sort of like at the intersection of comedy and culture and sports. And so, we've done a lot of work. I don't know if you've seen, we've done Cold as Balls, the show where Kevin is interviewing athletes in cold tubs for years and years and years. And we've done Olympic highlights. We've produced a couple of shows for Peacock in the sports arena. So this is something that's kind of core to who we are. And we find a lot of synergy between sports and comedy.
And then to piggyback off of that question, why Indianapolis? What drew you guys to want to partner with the NBA All-Star, the WNBA All-Star, but more importantly, the city, the community of Indianapolis to bring these events and activations?
Yeah, well, Indiana has kind of become a mecca for sports. I think we are in the perfect year for this, obviously, with the Pacers this year, WNBA All-Star being here, the Fever being here. This is a partnership that's starting out for the WNBA All-Star game, but it's something that we plan to be a part of for years to come, really working with this city to, bring fans here and make it synonymous with sports and entertainment.
Well, you mentioned Indianapolis specifically, but it's also the goal to do this in other cities and partner with other leagues and franchises as well.
Yes, definitely. We'd love to partner with other franchises. I think right now, though, our focus is very much on Indianapolis and the amazing partnership that we have here.
Well, the inaugural Fever Fest is happening this Saturday, July the 19th in Indianapolis if you are in the area. Janina Lundy, Global Head of Marketing and Brand Strategy at Heartbeat, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, yeah, time for the sprint. Let's go streaking here. Don't I mean streaking through the quad. I mean streaking in Major League Baseball, which is what the Boston Red Sox actually are doing right now, Tom. 9-11, 9-12 on the rotation.
You have to put some stock into them, especially with their hitters. What the Red Sox are doing, they're scoring runs early, they're scoring runs late. Doesn't matter if it's a walk-off, they're putting up runs consistently, hits consistently.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
How are you going to compete against a guy with 15 entries?
A lot of the guys that won Survivor at the Circa, because since I'm there every single year for contest weekend, one guy won it all with one entry. And the truth is, he told me that he maxed out his entries the next year because he had the money to do it. And it was a brain, it messed with his brain, right?
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
Aaron Judge is great, but if you want to talk about full contributions to a team, maybe I'm biased as a former catcher myself, but I think Cal Raleigh's working a little bit harder than everybody else, and I think Cal Raleigh should be right in this thing. If he sets that single season home run record for a catcher, I think that's probably what it's going to take for him to overtake Judge. I don't think it's impossible for him to get there. I think it's unlikely.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid. The game is on. The stakes are high, but the action isn't just on the field.
He's rearranging that ring. Get it inside!
SportsGrid's in-game live. Your ultimate second screen experience.
A little flyer, couple of 15.5 points live line.
Every prop, every play, every day.
Anything can happen. That's complete chaos.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
And welcome back, everyone, to Front Office Sports Today with Renee. I'm Baker. And, of course, as we've been talking throughout the whole show, excitement is high in Indianapolis for the WNBA All-Star Game. So let's go to the ground right now and go to the scene and see what's happening. Let's bring in our Daryl Barnes, who is in Indianapolis for us. Daryl, good to see you as always. So tell us a little about this Hoosier hospitality you've been experiencing. What's it been like on the ground in Indy?
You know, it's been fun out here in Indy. I don't know if you can see behind me right here. We're at Monument Circle. This is one of several kind of hot spots, as they're calling it, for their different activations that they have going around. I mean, I think a lot of media beforehand was the little murmurs that I was hearing was, oh, you know, the All-Star Game's in Indy. I don't really wish it wasn't in Indy. It's not like a super cool place. But when you get here, it kind of feels like a place that's really good for hosting sports events. I mean, they really care. They're putting up several things big like this. I mean, this is a couple different basketball courts behind us. In the airport, they had a basketball court. You walk to the main tournament, they have basketball. The main terminal, I mean, you walk over there, they have basketball courts, big banners all around. They have like 30-story banners of the different All-Stars at like just all around the city on different buildings. So it's been just a cool place to observe and walk around and see everything.
And while you're there are tons of different activations and partnerships. One that is not a true partnership with the WNBA is Unrivaled. The 3-on-3 league does have a presence there, though. And you had a chance to stop by Unrivaled HQ. I know their co-founder, Alex Basil, had some comments as well. What were your takeaways, and just what can you tell us from your time hanging out at Unrivaled HQ?
Yeah, Unrivaled is really cool, and it's a really interesting thing when you think about it, the fact that Unrivaled has a presence at the WNBA All-Star Weekend. Like, you kind of feel like, oh, is that a competitive thing? But it's really not. It's just another way that the Unrivaled is telling us that it's just a way to promote and grow their fan base and women's basketball, just period. So the whole point of their activation is basically going around, and then you get to go through basically a recreation of their Miami facility, right? They have a little locker room. They have a recreation of the Sephora Glam Room, the Sephora Tunnel Walk. And then they have a full basketball court inside of there. And so there's going to be a bunch of different things inside there going on. Marina Maubrey is doing an event where working with Under Armour, where she's giving out a bunch of swag away to local children in the area. Flauget is having an announcement there later this afternoon. So it's just a really cool space to kind of walk through and see here at, you know, an all-star weekend for another league, which is kind of funny.
Daryl, as we discussed earlier on in the show, all the WNBA players met with the league yesterday about collective bargaining talks. Of course, that expires on the 31st of October. You were there when those players were having those discussions. What was the energy like in the room?
Yeah, so I wasn't in the room where the CBA was going on, but I was actually next to Alex Bazell from Unrivaled when the news came out, when that statement from the CBA after the players came out of that negotiations meeting, and it was interesting. I think that the media was definitely latching onto that. You see a lot of those quotes coming out this morning from those media availabilities talking just about the CBA. What does that mean? Could we see a potential lockout? I can tell you firsthand that Alex from Unrivaled told me that they're not looking at it as like Unrivaled being a competitive thing. This isn't a conflict of interest with Nafisa and Breanna Stewart like being on that board in those negotiations, but also having Unrivaled as their own league. So they're not looking at that as like a competitive thing where if there's a lockout, Unrivaled's like, yeah, hey, we benefit from that. They're looking at it as you know what, the WNBA is doing their thing, Unrivaled is doing their separate thing, and they're just hoping that everything works out for the sake of women's basketball.
All right, well, Daryl Barnes, continue to enjoy Indianapolis all ahead of WNBA All-Star Game this Saturday. Daryl Barnes for us in Indianapolis. Thank you, Daryl. And let's see what's bubbling over at the FOS water cooler. Well, get the cameras ready, Renee, as FOS reporter Ryan Glasspiegel has learned that Hulu has greenlit a docuseries following Bill Belichick and North Carolina football. Belichick and UNC were previously slated to be featured on HBO's Hard Knocks, but that all fell apart due to creative differences with Belichick's girlfriend, Jordan Hudson. Now, we don't know what the series is going to be called, but we should note Hudson did register the trademarks for phrases including Chapel Bill, Bill's version, Do Your Job, Bill's version, and No Days Off, Bill version. So what do you think it's going to be called?
Yeah, Hulu has live sports and Bill Belichick.
Yes.
The Tar Heels coming to Hulu instead of Hard Knocks on HBO. It's interesting to me because when you look at the 49 years of his NFL coaching and 29 of those as a head coach, we didn't see nearly this much about Bill Belichick that we've seen in less than a year. So I'm excited to see what his inaugural season looks like in the start of his 5-year contract as head coach at UNC. I had the name of a Bill on Chapel Hill.
Ooh, that works.
But I do like Chapel Bill if that was something that was
I think
allowed,
that works
but
perfectly
a Bill on Chapel
for
Hill.
a Hulu name, but it's also interesting. More pressure now on him to do well in this first season, given the fact that he has this controversial relationship with Jordan, and now he has a docuseries happening at the
Makes
same
you wonder
time.
if that would taint his career in any way.
Maybe.
If it doesn't.
All right, guys, we'll be back next week as we get you ready for MLS All-Star Week in Austin. Thanks so much for watching. Have a good weekend.
I'm just a Bill.